based in the northeast, I could have drawn on all sorts of quite miserable motifs and images. Instead, I've tried to use trees to evoke spring, because whilst most of the authorities in the northeast are going through pretty hellish spending cuts at the moment, part of what I'm doing in the northeast and what we're doing with the Pro 5 within the English regions, I think brings a glimmer of hope that as we come out of recession, as spending starts to increase, procurement will be in a much better place than it has been hitherto. And that's really what my story will be about this afternoon. I want to talk about the consortia in England, try and give you a flavour for the scale of the challenge we've got, what's beginning to happen, what remains to be done. I want inevitably to talk a bit about NEPO, but not that much, because we're still in a developing story here. I want to do quite a strong plug for the Pro 5, which is an interesting position for me, because having been in the Department for Education, trying to cajole and encourage greater coordination across procurement for schools, especially from Pro 5 members, I'm here now from within, able to promote that agenda on their behalf, as well as help to move things forward. I want to talk about food, because after all, I'm stopping you having lunch, so I'll talk a bit about food procurement, and in particular what the Pro 5 is doing, as an example of where we want to take category management in local governments. I'll dwell a bit on the kind of governmental issues and how local government in England will relate to that, just as Alistair's done for Scotland, and then just a hint about the future, where perhaps things will head. Now, certain Mr. Colin Cram a little while ago tried to draw an analogy between Tesco's and spending in the public sector, and being Colin, he got pretty well everything right, and his diagnosis was spot on. The fact that it's going to be quite difficult to get to the stage where we actually can operate like Tesco's, I think, is going to be challenging, especially as there is a bit of a myth that we only have 40 consortia arrangements in the UK. A colleague of mine, friend of mine, and I sat down one lunchtime a little while ago and actually ended up about 140 different consortia organisations spread across the UK and counting. Many go back an awful long time, some are new, all have quite different constitutions, which makes it really very difficult, I think, to easily chart a way towards the unity that the Scots have achieved. After all, some of us are owned by joint committees of several different local authorities, some are constituted as trading organisations, some are just loose confederations of organisations. It's bad enough within one regional consortia trying to keep 12 local authorities in line and travelling in the same direction. Doing that across different sectors, different organisations is profoundly difficult. But there have been some notable successes that I think underlines the need for you, if you are local governments or other wider public sector buyers, to look quite seriously at your consortia and make sure you're using them, and have a really good reason if you are not. Let me just take the Crescent Purchasing Consortia, which, whilst I was at the Department for Education, we actually helped to build a stronger presence for them in the further education colleges, such that they now have pretty well all FE colleges signed up to their arrangements. A growing level of expenditure, a growing level of sophistication of procurement, and I think a really good example of how an individual sector can get its act together. The question is how in the future we pull all that together from a wider English perspective. And to put the case that I think Colin captured so well, in fact, using his numbers, we have at least 40,000 buyers spending something like 225 billion across UK government, and a significant proportion of that, as Alistair has already said, is within the wider public sector, local government rather than central governments. But we're all doing it to different specifications still, all busily reinventing wheels, and still using frameworks rather than committed procurement to get to an easier route to buy, and in the end we're all buying stationery. So what's the case for the consortium as we currently stand? Firstly, with very, very few exceptions, we are owned by the public sector. So we have public sector organisations. There is already a wide range of contracts available for use by many parts of the public sector. And if you go to the Pro5 stand, kind of over in that direction, you see a list of those contracts which are available both nationally through the Pro5, but also beneath that there are quite significant ranges of contracts from each of the consortia members. We do achieve aggregation, and I'll talk about how we're going to improve that further in a later slide. We offer legally compliant solutions that reduce the risk of public sector procurement quite substantially, which in itself I think is a major challenge for most local government buyers. We're using a range of procurement skills and technology. We have the critical mass to be able to support that. We can service and support contracts and contract manage in a way that I think is pretty key to making a success of all this. And again, look at your consortia because there will be low-hanging fruit. But as you can sense, there is a bit of a but coming. If you look at the Pro5 as a group of organisations, we only currently have a total spend through our contracts of upwards of £2 billion, which in the context of local government spend is quite clearly small. There are gaps in our geography, with large parts of the country not explicitly served by a Pro5 member, but there's a history of competition between us which can be healthy in part, but doesn't necessarily achieve the objective that we should be aiming for. And frankly, with a few exceptions, there's been quite a strong emphasis on the schools market rather than necessarily tackling some of the big areas of local government spend. But I can promise you that times are changing. At one level, we've got a significant reversal of the economy, significant reversal in spending plans, particularly in the northeast, where we're struggling with quite significant cuts very rapidly during the course of the next year. We're losing the momentum that the regional efficiency and improvement partnerships delivered, and I think I'm the only consortia that is acquiring the collaborative procurement assets and spend analysis of its regional REAP to be able to carry that forward. And I think we run a serious risk of losing a lot of the good work that's been done in procurements and collaboration and spend analysis unless we're very, very careful. Equally, I think we've now lost the support the central government has provided through the OGC for helping to push a collaboration agenda, which certainly the Pro5 are beginning to actively respond to. And I think it's unfortunate in many ways that central government is reining itself in with the aim of sorting itself out first. And we're also, if the North East is any example to go by, losing a great many regional institutions that would otherwise have been great allies of developing a thing like NEPO in its wider social objectives.